per country which did not vote for you. So you feel some level of insecurity, and you need to keep saying the people decided. Which people? Half of the people. Is a democratic country. Just slightly more than half voted for you. Half of those people did not vote for you. That's why presidents and presidents-elect always desire to be voted by a majority win of 70, 80. You can now, confidently say the people voted for me. So this talk by Ruto and Gachagua, we'll continue hearing it even post the petition and, let into their presidency, trying to legitimize their win, trying to consolidate their power, trying to tell people we were duly elected because of the narrow win that they may experience if the presidential election petition does not succeed.
Because so many issues raised by the Azimio la Umoja in regards to what we're talking about, the petition, the demonstration of what they are alleging is what remains a question at the Supreme Court that is we are expecting to be answered at the end of the week. So many issues raised. Is that the position that we have found ourselves in what the Azimio says the election were conducted and what we expect to come up at the Supreme Court?
Chris, it's not over until it's over. And the sooner our political leaders realize as much, and especially those ones who contested for presidency, the better for each one of them. It would diffuse all these tensions that they're experiencing as candidates, and which tension even as Kenyans we're experiencing. Because going to the Supreme Court is still part of the election process. It is what is provided for in the law. That having been said, you would realize that the president-elect, His Excellency William Ruto, has struck a very reconciliatory tone ever since he was declared as president-elect. He's not been as combative as as he was before the declaration of the results. I'm very surprised that Gachagua is still very, very bossy and it's still very pushy about the way he's relaying his message. It's not the best. He's the deputy president-elect. As it stands right now, he's the deputy president-elect. So he's supposed to be approaching things with some level of soberness that is expected of someone who is occupying the position that he's occupying. Back to the Supreme Court. 8 other petitions. And that is one thing that even me and my colleagues in the legal profession have been talking about. You may realize that what will invalidate this election may not even be the Azimio petition. It may be the petition by my good friend Okiya Omtatah, or it may be the petition by my kinsman Kigame. It may be the petition by Halifa and his team, or this other one that was filed by the civil society, because they raise very fundamental questions within their petitions. Like, let's say, for instance, the Kigame petition. The Kigame petition is asking of the legitimacy of the people who found themselves on the ballot as presidential hopeful, in light of court orders that had said that the way the IEBC conducted itself was discriminatory, yes, insofar as the independent candidates are concerned. So did they have a legitimate expectation of having been on the ballot? And did the IEBC make a proper decision in omitting them from the ballot? It is a question that the Supreme Court has to deal with. If you look at the Okiya Omtatah petition, it's a very short petition, but it raises very fundamental. And you see, the Supreme Court is now unlike in the two previous presidential election petitions. In this one here, we have 9 petitioners that are raising separate issues. Let's say, for instance, if in each of the petitioners raise 5 issues, times 9, those are already 45 issues. So there are 45 issues that the Supreme Court has to make a decision on. So, and that is, if you look at the way our political leadership, and especially the presidential candidates are behaving, you cannot tell me that out of all the 45 issues, at the very bare minimum, that we are not going, the Supreme Court will not find fault in the, and you see, most of them are not actually accusing. Okay, there are some of them who are accusing the deputy president in the way he conducted his affairs during the elections. But then most of them are bringing their war to the doorstep of the IEBC. There is no way that out of all the issues that have been brought for the determination of the Supreme Court, that the Supreme Court will not even find a fault in the activities or in the way the IEBC conducted itself. And as I can tell you for a fact that most of these presidential candidates are actually preparing for a rerun or for a runoff. Most of them. In fact, Raila is preparing for it. The deputy president is preparing for it. The reason why I'm saying that, you remember there was a lot of clout and clamor immediately after he was announced as the deputy, as the president-elect. Then suddenly the president-elect has gone silent. We don't see him, apart from yesterday, we've not been seeing the president-elect on national television. We even do not know whether he went back to Sugoi or whether he's still in Nairobi. No one really knows where these people are hiding. But I can tell you that they are marshalling their troops for a possible for a possibility that they are going back to the people to seek for a fresh mandate. Yes.
And let's come to you, Sam. So many issues that he has talked about, and the conduct of the presidential candidates who are at the August polls. You also vying as a member of County Assembly as well as Levy Willows. The issues that have been raised, are those some of the issues that you witnessed on the ground, and also are they the same issues that you can also say perhaps denied you a win?
I want to agree with my good friend Pico.
In as much as I know where his political alienation is, and therefore ask him to really tone down in focusing so much on the president-elect, but also thank him for acknowledging that fact. But on the issues raised, these are quite pertinent issues. They are very pertinent issues in terms of how the conduct of the election was done. And therefore, it is also good to realize that the petition, as he rightfully puts it, does not pity the deputy president or the president-elect versus the Azimio flag bearer. The issue and the burden of proof solely and squarely and majorly lies with IEBC. So were there irregularities as are the questions that are being raised? What are these issues that we can really point on? And we must acknowledge that in this election, it was one of the most peaceful elections that this country has ever witnessed. And that is something that we can really progressively mirror ourselves with. But in terms of the conduct of election, and that is based from my experience, we know that the election starts and ended at the polling station level. So what is it that happened at the polling station level? And I remember when we were counting of votes, or even during the voting process, my experience was somehow a little bit hazy, because from where I voted at Dr. Likimani and most of the polling stations within Kitengela, we had a lot of voters who were hoarded into buses. There was open and blatant corruption. People were being paid to vote in a particular way. And I'm really very keen on some of these issues, because that is an illegality in itself. But I remember when it came to counting of votes, the presidential vote was given a little bit more interest vis-a-vis all the other 6 candidates in the ballot paper. And I remember at some point, everything else had to come to a standstill, so that every person, every IEBC officer within the station now solely focuses on the presidential vote for the same to be relayed directly to the tallying center. That is the constituency level, county, and finally to Bomas. So to me, I am keenly looking at some of these issues that are being raised in terms of the conduct of IEBC. And that is a progressive thing. That, in terms of reshaping our organizations and institutions, is something that is great. What I do not agree with is the public persecution of these cases. And I will fault the Azimio coalition. And I will fault them in this. Remember, when they're presenting their evidence in the truckload. Is it the Isuzu load? You know, which of evidence. And I could see that they were rallying their supporters to come in and witness in delivery of this. That is not the right way to do it. And I think that is their own strategy, as Biko rightfully puts it. And also remind him that the Kenya Kwanza coalition, in its response, is coming in with a flash disk. So you, you will understand that. But if we continue publicly, you know, with this petition and involving the public day in, day out, then the results and the peace and the quietness and the calmness that we are enjoying at this particular juncture may continue to be fizzled and you know, and rattled in one way or the other. And therefore, what I would expect, and probably this would actually now go to the Supreme Court. The Supreme decision, their pronouncement, is something that that will actually weigh so much on this country, and it is going to affect even the running, especially on that day of the pronouncement. And based on what the Azimio coalition is doing and marshalling its soldiers to come in, I think my advice, therefore, to the Supreme Court, or what, from where I stand, I would really be expecting, is probably the Supreme Court to consider, even as they do the pronouncement of these issues, to probably even do the pronouncement away from Nairobi, because the court can sit anywhere. They can decide to go to Kacheliba, you know, and do the pronouncement in Kacheliba, where our good friends and their coalition may not be able to marshal soldiers, you know. You know, and because a pronouncement is a pronouncement. It doesn't matter where it comes from. But that is something that really needs to be looked at critically. That if the pronouncements are made at the farthest end, and the majority of people are now able now to sink in and get in the news that this is what the Supreme Court has ordered, you know, be it whatever way it goes. But we largely want peace, and we want people's lives not to be disrupted. So that would be my take on that.
Levi, the same issues raised in 2017, also coming up in 2022. You are part of, you know, the aspirants and the candidates of different positions. You being a member of parliament candidate, those same issues came up again at the Supreme Court in regards to the conduct of IEBC, and this time also the conduct of the chairman. From where you sit as an immediate candidate, is that what transpired?
Chris, first, as lawyers, we are accustomed to disagree on legal issues. You expect a lot of disagreement between my sentiments and my observations with those of my colleague Biko. What he has rightfully stated is that an election is ordinarily and actually legally an inquiry into the conduct of the organizer of the election. In Kenya, the organizer of the election constitutionally is IEBC. So in any election petition all over the world, you expect a lot of attention to turn into the organizer of the election vis-a-vis who has been declared a president-elect and other parties to it. So it is expected that the petitions, 9 in number, would focus more on attacking IEBC rather than attacking the presidential elect. That is one important thing. The question you've asked, as a candidate, I'm very interested and keenly following what transpired within IEBC. Not with the view of who will win the presidential petition, but with the view of understanding whether there are improvements on how IEBC conducted the election in 2013, 2017, and now 2022. And from our personal observation at the polling station, I face similar challenges as my brother here. You'd find a lot of outside polling station illegalities. As you know, Chris, an election basically entails 6 major processes. That is the campaign period, there's the voting period, there's the counting period, transmission, tallying, verification, then declaration. So I noted during my walks around polling station, you'd find a lot of illegalities outside the polling station. And there's a lot of organization. At my polling station in Kangoro, in Mokoroine, in any constituency, you could hardly find any argument within the polling station as it is accustomed in previous election. Because a vote is removed, everyone is seen, other people are seated outside the building. This one belongs to William Ruto. Actually, the whole crowd would shout, Ruto, placed in his bucket. Raila, this other side. So I really appreciate that aspect of IBC, at least on the surface. Now the petition is there. We are looking now beneath the surface. And
What's
serious
transpired?
issues are coming up. Serious irregularities have been raised. I always take a lot of caution while commenting on a case before I hear a reply. So a case can look very good until you hear the reply of IBC and the respondents, which I think they have a deadline of tomorrow. So by tomorrow evening, I'll be able to read the IBC response, and then now I can weigh on the merits of the case better. But to comment critically and legally on the case itself, it is an arguable case. They have raised concerns that can be argued in court. Of course, during the trial that begins on Monday, we'll now start seeing how that allegation is supported by evidence. Now, we don't have the privilege to interrogate the entire evidence until now it's brought forth in court, the cartons that were being carried by the Isuzu Lord. Now, before they start being attached to the arguments, that's when we'll know exactly whether those allegations are backed by evidence. But it's an arguable case. What I really observe is that the case might not be as strong as the 2017 case. And the reason is the 2017 case was predominantly strong and resulted into an annulment of an election because of IBC errors. And the IBC errors took different dimension. Of course, there were errors that could be considered as intentional, but most errors that resulted into the nullification of the 2017 election was the IBC inability to grasp the law well. Because election laws in Kenya are very detailed and very complex. So IBC could not grasp exactly what is needed of them. And in that confusion, a lot of problems arose that, the then NASA, I believe, coalition was quick to grasp and take them to court. And you could see even in 2017, there was no problem with counting. There was no problem with voting. The problem started with transmission, Kimskit. And that's where the problem began, and it resulted into the annulment of the election. If I can summarize the 2017 decision in a sentence, the precedent that came out of the court is what we call substantial violation test. It emanates from a provision of Section 83 of the Election Act of Kenya. And that provision clearly states that an election may not be annulled purely on reasons of violation of the laws if there is evidence that it was conducted within the Constitution. So that's where the substantial violation test arises. That Azimio can bring all small irregularities, some out of human error, some out of failure in systems, to court. But if they don't substantiate those arguments, crystallize them, and argue that it was substantial and systematic violation of our laws, and the second aspect is that that violation resulted or substantially affected the results of the election. One thing that is in their favor is that the gap between the two candidates was very narrow. The second thing is that the 50+1. So if you can convince the court that around 300,000 votes were irregularly or against the law given in favor of William Ruto, then you can meet that test of substantial violation. So that's what I expect to play out in the Supreme Court. Has the test that was set in 2017 achieved? The Supreme Court has all the rights in law to change the test and come up with another test. They're not bound by their own precedent, but the case is arguable. However, in my own estimation, because of some sobriety and keenness by IBC arising from their suffering last time, I believe the case may not be as strong as the case that was mounted in 2017.
All right, and there's something that Moses Wetangula weighed in that regard. Let's take a listen and then we come to conclude this discussion.
Tumekuwa na uchaguzi tarehe 9 mwezi wa 8. Uchaguzi umekwisha na tumewachagua wale tuliowapenda. Wamekuja kutufanyia kazi. Na watolea heko kwa kutuelewa na kuchagua serikali ya juu. Candidate wetu William Samoei Ruto alishinda kura na anangoja kuapishwa. Sasa ni kujipanga. Nataka kuhakikishia ile petition wamepeleka kwa koti, nimeisoma, nimeichambua na nimeona hakuna kitu hapo.
Hakuna kitu. Then just as we conclude, just briefly, Biko, hakuna kitu hapo. That's what Wetangula says. And he says, as a senior lawyer, hakuna kitu hapo.
Hiyo ni uongo. Like I said, okay, he may be having a point. He says he's read it. I would want to interpret it from either as a legal practitioner and from just him, making a political jibe. As a legal practitioner, you don't dismiss your colleague's petition. You don't. These things, or rather, the decision that would come from the Supreme Court, just like a decision that would come from any court, can go either way by a very small issue. So you cannot tell me that out of the 72 page petition that has been presented to the Supreme Court for determination, that you can very confidently come out and say that hakuna kitu hapo. Be that as it may, like I've said, there are 8 other petitions. But then just before we took the break, my colleague here had had said something that I wanted to respond to. And,
just briefly.
Yeah, just briefly. The Supreme Court sitting to make a determination on a presidential petition sits as the Supreme Court, and it also sits as a political court. The reason why I'm saying that will follow from the sentiment that I said earlier on, that the presidential election is a process that ends, that culminates with the Supreme Court. If you look at the election of a president in this country, it starts by there's the mandate that has been given to the IEBC to conduct the election, and if anyone feels like they are not agreeable to the results that have been given by the IEBC, they have the option of going to the Supreme Court. So that the Supreme Court becomes the last resort in this election process. So insofar as the Supreme Court being the last resort in this election process, it automatically becomes a political, it becomes a political entity. Right? So it is sitting there as the Supreme Court as the apex court, but then it is also sitting there as a political entity because it's participating in a political process. Insofar as that one is concerned, perception is very important. So if you see Azimio coming in with a lorry with a full load of evidence, and if you are keen on that particular day when everything was being offloaded, whatever was offloaded from that lorry could very comfortably fit in a pickup. But very conveniently they decided to come in with a canter, just for the optics. So at this stage, it is, and that is why you are seeing them very actively prosecuting their case in public, so that they are thinking that probably it would influence the decision that will come out from the Supreme Court, which of course we as practitioners know that to a large extent the judges would determine a case on its merits. But then at the end of the day, they are also human. They read these newspapers. they interact with the people by watching television and watching everything that is happening around them, because you see they live in a society. So in one way or the other, that is the direction that the Azimio is trying to take this thing to try and get a favorable judgment from the Supreme Court. I would like to rest there.
That's your rest. I think you've eaten time for the rest, but then I'll give you less than a minute so that you also make your final submission, as well as also your final submission. Levi.
Thank you so much, Chris. A presidential election petition or several presidential election petitions being in the Supreme Court is a good thing for this country. And I made a comment in another forum that Raila's legacy on improving and advancing election jurisprudence can be rivaled by none in the world as we speak. That one person has really improved how election laws and how election decisions should be made by filing 3 major petitions. So as Kenyans, let us not concentrate on who will win or who will not, but let's observe that process keenly to know the strengths and the weaknesses that transpire during the election, and how bodies like IBC can improve and ensure that even the next election is more free and more pro-people in terms of, capturing the will of the people. So at the end of the day, when the election results are discussed, Kenyans are, the election petition is decided, let Kenyans remain calm, let candidates accept the decision, and let us move on with the leader who Kenyans will elect. If you are going for fresh elections, let's open the campaign, run it, finalize the process, return to our normal lives. There's always 2027 people will vie against, so that elections do not disrupt our lives as Kenyans. Thank you.
And just before I cross to Sam, there's a statement you made after conceding. What was that statement?
Chris, I'm writing a whole paper on that statement, so I don't want to exhaust my paper.
Is that how you summarized it?
Oh yeah.
I saw it as well. And it was trending all over.
Exactly.
Sam, what do you make a
I was hoping he would say the statement today live here. I was really interested to hear how he said it. But I think the Supreme Court and the pronouncement that will come in any election, the nexus or the finality of it is getting a winner. And how this plays out and how it comes out, what Kenyans want is to know who in fairness will become the president. And therefore, in terms of trying to improve the electoral process, like my brother has said, professionally and in the backyard, it's a good thing. But in the eyes of the public, what they want is to know, as we have as is today, Ruto is the president-elect. And majority of Kenyans, from where I sit, are actually looking from that pronouncement, where we will now march forward and see the president-elect take oath of office to becoming the president, the rightful president of this nation. But by and large, I would want to laud Kenyans for a very peaceful election period. From having participated in this election, I would also want to thank the great people of Kitengela for apparently voting for me overwhelmingly. Ours was not an opaque sort of election, as Biko rightfully puts it. But we have an array of errors we saw within this election. But again, we agree that as a country, we also need to move forward. We also are eager to see that some of these illegalities that are being pointed out also cut across, and they're also streamlined. With that nexus, I would really want to congratulate and appreciate the people, generally Kenyans, for conducting a very peaceful election and electing the leaders that are there in office today, and the people of Kitengela for making their pronouncement and electing Samson Kimunge Kamau in big numbers, irrespective of the illegalities that happened in that very day. We still live to fight another day.
All right, your statement is we still live to fight another day. We'll also hear from Levi what he had to say as well later on. But then that is where we end up this program. Thank you so much. Biko Ashoya, advocate of the High Court, Levi Monyeri, an advocate of the High Court as well, and also Samson Kamau as a politician, businessman, and also an immediate member of County Assembly candidate for Kitengela Ward. And that is where we wind this particular discussion this morning. Due to time factor, this week we will not be having the entertainment segment, but next week we return back with the entertainment segment. This is Kirk in the morning. My name is Chris Sambu, but for now, goodbye and good morning.